I found someone worth my time. That's how it started. One sentence, no hello, no soft landing, just a clean break. My name is Nathan Carter. I'm 43 years old, a commercial architect based in Asheville, North Carolina. I've spent the last 15 years designing buildings for other people, but somehow I didn't see the cracks in my own foundation until it was too late. I was sitting in my home office, staring at an email from my wife of 12 years. Ashley was supposedly at a yoga retreat in Sedona, 3 days into a digital detox, except clearly she'd brought Wi-Fi and a plan. She used to say retreats helped her realign. Realign with what? I never asked. It started innocently enough. One long weekend every 6 months. Then 4-day trips turned into full weeks. Then came the no-phone policies, the Instagram yogis, the sudden language of energy blocks and emotional containers. I didn't push back. I figured it was just her version of coping. We all need something to quiet the noise. But by the third retreat, she wasn't coming back quieter. She was coming back colder. She once told me that relationships were just patterns we choose to maintain. I remember because she said it after I'd spent 2 hours fixing a leak under the sink, alone. She walked past me, towel in her hair, and just dropped that sentence like it was a quote from a podcast. Maybe it was. Ashley had become fluent in emotional detachment, like she'd taken a master class in casual cruelty. And I let it go. Again. Because I wanted to believe we were still on the same team. Even as the scoreboard kept changing. I'd inherited the money a year ago. My father passed. Stroke. Left me the family home and a fund he'd built quietly through rental properties and bonds. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough. Enough to feel like a reset button. Enough to maybe start our own thing, a firm, a rental flip, something that was ours. Ashley smiled when I told her. He said, finally, something to breathe with. She kissed me that night, and 3 weeks later she asked if I'd consider putting the account in both our names for simplicity. I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either. Instead, I asked a friend of mine, a financial advisor, what to do. He told me, if you even have to ask that question, Nathan, start protecting it now. So I did. Quietly moved it into a trust, separated from everything, even from my business accounts. Not hidden, just secured. I never told Ashley. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I didn't trust the person she was becoming. She started going to more of those retreats after that. Said she needed space to get clear. Said she felt compressed in our home. That my energy was too practical. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I knew what it sounded like, an exit ramp being built, one incense stick at a time. Subject line, let's be honest with each other. I remember the timestamp because I hadn't even made coffee yet. I was sitting at the kitchen table, reading the news on my phone, when the notification buzzed. Sender, Ashley. My wife of 12 years. She was on a wellness retreat in Sedona, supposedly off-grid, supposedly healing, supposedly thinking about our marriage. Instead, she was writing this. So when her email arrived that morning, signed not with love, but with distance, I didn't panic. I didn't even finish my coffee. I just tapped reply, typed 5 words, and hit send. Thanks for letting me know. And I meant it, because what she didn't know was that I'd already protected what mattered. And now the only thing she was stealing was silence. It wasn't long. 3 paragraphs. No greeting, no warmth. Just a calm, calculated bomb. I've met someone who sees me. I've moved your inheritance into my private account. You don't need it, and I deserve a fresh start. We'll handle the rest through legal. Please don't make this ugly. It ended with her name. Not love Ashley, just Ashley. Like a business letter, not a breakup, not a betrayal. I stared at the screen for a long time, not blinking, not moving. There was no shock, no scream caught in my throat, just a kind of stillness, a mental click, because deep down I already knew. She hadn't been mine in a long time. I knew it when she stopped asking how my day was, when she came back from her first retreat with that new laugh, that high, breathy one she used when she was hiding something, when she started quoting self-help gurus more than speaking in her own voice. And I definitely knew it when she asked for full access to my inheritance accounts. Just in case something happened, I should have felt rage, but I didn't. I should have felt grief, but that too had already passed. What I felt was relief. Relief that I didn't have to pretend anymore, that she had shown her hand, finally, without me having to provoke her. And most of all, relief that I'd prepared. I replied to the email. One line. "Thanks for letting me know." That was it. No punctuation, no signature. I didn't explain, didn't ask questions, because she thought she'd just blindsided me. She didn't realize she was already 6 months too late. I met Ashley in 2008 on a construction site. She was there shadowing the project manager for a sustainability blog. I was overseeing the foundation pour. She had questions, I had answers, and somehow, between poured concrete and scheduling conflicts, we found something that felt like rhythm. She was curious, smart, challenging in the way that made you want to be sharper, not defensive. We started dating the week after the site closed, married 18 months later. Back then, she used to say, "I want a quiet kind of life, steady, grounded." So did I. We weren't flashy. We bought a modest home in Asheville. She ran a boutique PR agency from her laptop. I moved from fieldwork to firm design. We didn't party, didn't chase clout. We built slow. Dinners at home, hikes on weekends, brunch every third Sunday with her parents. It was easy until it wasn't. The first cracks didn't feel like cracks, just small fractures in the rhythm. She got busier, longer hours, more stressed. Started sleeping with her phone under her pillow. "For emergencies," she said. Stopped asking how my day was. Started watching YouTube videos about minimalism and radical realignment. At first, I thought it was just a phase. People grow, change, evolve. But Ashley wasn't evolving. She was escaping. The retreats started 3 years ago. A friend invited her to a weekend silent meditation intensive. She came back glowing, lighter, said she felt like someone had peeled a layer off her soul. I didn't argue. It sounded good, healthy, and if it made her happy, who was I to question it? That was retreat number 1. Number 2 was in California. Number 3, Costa Rica. Each time she came back, a little more detached. Like the version of her that married me was now someone else's memory. She started wearing all white, stopped eating meat, stopped drinking coffee, stopped looking me in the eye when we talked about bills or family. Instead, she talked about vibration mismatches and emotional congestion. I didn't understand it, but I nodded along because I thought that's what patience looked like. But patience without communication, that's just quiet surrender. The inheritance changed everything. My father died in his sleep. Massive stroke. Left behind a will and a note. He wasn't a rich man, but he was smart with what little he had. Over the years, he'd bought and rented 2 duplexes, kept his expenses lean, and when he passed, I inherited it all. About $430,000 between the properties, savings, and bonds. Enough to make life feel breathable, enough to change plans. Ashley reacted with tears at first, held my hand, said, "He always believed in you." But 2 weeks later, she brought up the accounts, said it would be so much simpler if we merged everything to one shared financial structure. It would look better for taxes, she said. It would make things smoother. I hesitated, she noticed. "You don't trust me?" she asked. "I do," I said. But I also remembered what my father once told me. Trust is a feeling. Paperwork is a plan. So I didn't merge anything. Instead, I quietly hired a financial advisor, an old college buddy, discreet, direct. He helped me move the money into a protected revocable trust, filed in my name only, designed to bypass probate, divorce, or disputes. Not hidden, just unavailable to anyone who wasn't me. Ashley never asked again, maybe because she assumed I gave in, or maybe because she was already making her own moves. Her fourth retreat was in Sedona. 2 weeks. Digital detox. She left with a suitcase full of essential oils, yoga pants, and zero concern for what I was doing. 2 days before she left, she asked about our wills. Should we update them? She asked. Why? I replied, just to be clear in case something happens. I said I'd think about it. I already knew my answer. The night before she left, she barely kissed me goodbye, said, "Don't forget to water the jade plant." Didn't say, "I love you." Didn't say, "I'll miss you." And for the first time in 12 years, I didn't say it either, because I was starting to believe the woman I married had already checked out. Still, I didn't expect the email. Not that fast. Not that blunt. I thought I had a few more months. Maybe a slow fade. What I got was a cut cord and a forwarded receipt for her flight home, booked under her maiden name. But even as that email hit my inbox, even as she tried to take everything I'd built, what she didn't know was that I'd quietly built something else. Something she didn't have the keys to, something she would discover the moment she tried to cash in on the future I'd protected. Ashley's email was cold. It wasn't rage. It wasn't desperate. It was efficient, as if she'd sent it while sipping tea in a mountain cabin, legs crossed, incense burning, a yoga instructor just outside the door. She didn't ask for a conversation. She didn't ask for permission. She told me what she'd done. "I've moved your inheritance into my private account." Just like that. Like she was moving a pair of socks from one drawer to another. She framed it as necessity. "You're too tied to the past. I need a future that reflects who I am now." She said she'd restructured things for both our benefit, that this was about clean energy and clean exits. But it wasn't about cleansing, it was about control. And the mistake she made, her biggest mistake, was thinking I hadn't seen it coming. She left a paper trail, not the kind you hand over in court, the kind you hear in tone, in patterns, in how she stopped asking and started announcing. 2 months before that email, she stopped wearing her wedding ring, said it was tight, said she was letting go of attachments. I noticed, but I didn't argue. Instead, I watched because I wanted to be sure before I acted. She'd moved $142,000 from our joint savings account, nearly everything except a few $100s. Labeled it rebalancing. I flagged the transaction, not to stop it, just to mark the moment her intentions stopped being silent and started being signatures. What Ashley didn't know, what she never thought to ask, was that the inheritance account she touched wasn't the inheritance. 6 months earlier, I'd worked with my advisor to create a mirror account, same name, same interface, but it was empty, intentionally, just a decoy. The real money had already been transferred to the trust, accessible only through a 3-signature process, mine, my attorneys, and the trust managers. Not even I could touch it alone. So when she moved my inheritance, all she did was transfer nothing. An empty account into her name. She probably stared at her screen, smiling, believing she'd just taken the win. The silent spiritual heist she'd been orchestrating for months, and I let her believe it because that was the real gift, not the trust, not the protection, the silence. 2 days passed before she followed up. Another email. "Just checking in. Hope we can finalize things respectfully. My lawyer will reach out." No lawyer had called yet, and that told me something too. She was waiting for me to lose it, to call, to beg, to rage. She didn't understand that silence wasn't absence, it was alignment. I responded 2 hours later. Same tone. "Understood. My representation will respond." No signature, no emotion, because she was trying to provoke noise, and I'd mastered stillness. I didn't need to call anyone right away. The plan was already in motion. My lawyer had the documents on standby. The trust was intact. My side of the divorce paperwork was prepared. All I had to do was wait for her next mistake, and it came faster than I thought. Her lover, the one she'd met on her retreat, was a man named Julian. Julian ran a mindfulness podcast and sold online breathwork courses. I found his name through the Venmo transaction she forgot to make private. $500 retreat leader bonus. She hadn't just run away. She'd invested in fantasy, in flattery, in a man who called himself intuitively nomadic. I wasn't angry. I was almost impressed, because you have to be very sure of yourself to steal your husband's inheritance and run off with a hashtag. I forwarded that Venmo receipt to my lawyer, not to press charges, just to log it. Every detail mattered, because this wasn't about rage, this was about record. Then the real twist hit. She emailed me again. Her tone had changed. No more certainty. No more spiritual jargon, just one question. Can we talk? Something's not adding up. She'd tried to move the funds again, to invest, she said later, and discovered the account had been flagged, frozen, because her action triggered a notification from the trust's watch system, and her name wasn't on any approved access list. Her attempt looked like fraud, because it was. That night, she called. I didn't answer. She texted, "I'm confused. Can you please call me?" Then another, "You never told me the account was locked." Then silence, followed by one last message. "What did you do?" I stared at that final message for a long time, not because I didn't know how to respond, because I knew I wouldn't. That message wasn't for clarity. It was a last gasp. The moment when a thief realizes the vault was a mirror, and everything they reached for was never in their hands to begin with. Ashley never liked being ignored. Even during our marriage, silence unsettled her more than disagreement. She could debate, she could manipulate, but the one thing she never learned to handle was not having control of the narrative. So when I stopped responding, she panicked. She reached out to my lawyer, or tried to. He didn't take her call, because by then we'd already filed the first round of documentation, and what she'd done was no longer a conversation. It was evidence. A few days later, her lawyer, a man named Garvey, contacted my team. He sounded tense, wanted to clarify the timeline of the trust creation, asked if I had any intention of pressing charges. My lawyer was professional, told him, "We're not interested in escalation, just in clarity, and legal clarity favors our position." Garvey didn't respond immediately, but when he did, it was with a list of demands. They wanted a 50-50 split of all joint marital assets. Half of the inheritance account she tried to access. A formal apology for intentionally deceiving her. No mention of her retreat partner or the unauthorized transfers. They said it would keep things civil. We said no. 2 days later, Garvey withdrew from representation. Ashley had apparently misled him. Didn't mention the trust. Didn't mention the frozen account. Didn't mention that she'd already attempted multiple unauthorized transfers. In short, she'd played everyone. And it worked. Until it didn't, because now the paper trail told the story. And that story wasn't flattering. Her next move was emotional. Texted me at midnight. "I thought we were partners. You don't have to do this. I just wanted a new beginning." I didn't reply, because those weren't apologies. They were still angles. Still trying to soften a wall she couldn't climb. Meanwhile, my lawyer filed a motion to solidify asset separation. We submitted the timeline. Trust creation, 6 months before her email. Account access, unauthorized. Communications, archived. Transfers, logged. Legal authority, confirmed. In the eyes of the law, she hadn't just made a bad decision. She had committed a breach. and no amount of yoga quotes could fix that. Around this time, I heard from her sister, out of nowhere. We hadn't spoken in years. She just messaged me. I'm sorry, I didn't know what she'd become. I didn't reply to that either because I wasn't interested in her apologies or anyone else's. This wasn't about hurt feelings. It was about finished chapters. The next hearing was quiet. Ashley showed up alone, hair tied back, minimal makeup, no retreat glow this time. She didn't speak much, just watched as her attorney, a new one, tried to negotiate softer language into the asset declaration. We declined. The judge asked if there was any evidence Ashley believed the funds were jointly hers. There wasn't, not even from her, she said. I assumed. The judge raised an eyebrow, then ruled. All inheritance funds remained mine. Joint assets split 60-40 in my favor. No spousal support granted, no damages sought because I didn't want her punished. I wanted her erased from my accounts, from my legal obligations, from my future. After the ruling, she lingered outside the courthouse. I walked past her like I didn't know her, because in some ways I didn't. Not anymore. Not the version who would steal. Not the version who would lie to my face. Not the version who ran away with a breathwork instructor while pretending to heal. A week later, she emailed again. This time it was long. Said she was ashamed. Said she thought I would forgive her eventually. Said she'd made mistakes, but we'd been through too much to end in silence. She ended it with, I hope one day we can be friends. I didn't open it again, didn't save it, didn't even screenshot it, just dragged it to the trash folder and emptied it. Because here's the truth. People show you who they are, and when they do, you don't argue, you don't negotiate, you believe them. After the ruling, I didn't celebrate. There was no champagne, no victory dinner, no gloating call to a friend, because it didn't feel like a win. It felt like what it was, a reset, one I'd paid for, not with money, but with time, trust, and a kind of emotional erosion that takes years to notice. Ashley disappeared from social media first. The wellness brand she'd tried to launch stalled out. The Breathwork podcast with Julian vanished. A month after the divorce, someone forwarded me a screenshot of a Reddit thread. A woman asking if anyone had heard of Julian Silva because he'd ghosted her after promising a collaborative retreat in Mexico. Turns out she wasn't the first or the last. Ashley had picked a con man, a charming one, a polished one, but a con man all the same. I didn't feel smug. If anything, I felt sad. Because the woman I married would have seen through him in 5 minutes, but the woman I divorced, she thought enlightenment came with PayPal receipts. I got a letter from her, handwritten, 6 weeks later. She said she'd moved back to Georgia, was living with her mother, looking for a new direction. She apologized. Genuinely, I think, she wrote, I didn't lose the money. I lost the only person who never made me feel small, and that part hit me. Because for 12 years, I never tried to shrink her. I just thought we were growing in the same direction. We weren't. I didn't write back, not out of spite, out of peace, because replying would reopen a door I'd already locked, not with anger, but with finality. She wasn't mine to fix, wasn't mine to explain anything to anymore. That weight, gone. And in its place, quiet. I still walk by the old yoga studio sometimes, the one she used to rave about. They've since changed owners, new signage, no trace of the woman who used to show up in all white and talk about ascension. Sometimes I wonder what her story is now, what version of me she tells. But then I remember it doesn't matter, because the truth doesn't need retelling, only remembering. People ask if I'll ever trust again, if I'd ever marry again. And I say this. You can trust. Just don't outsource your protection. Love doesn't mean blind access. Compassion doesn't mean surrender. And foresight, that's not cold, it's survival. I didn't need Ashley to fall apart. I didn't need Julian to vanish. I didn't need karma to balance the scales. Because the point wasn't revenge. It was clarity. And clarity that lasts longer than any apology ever could. I didn't rebuild overnight. It wasn't a grand rebirth. There was no moment where I stood on a mountaintop and declared myself whole again. It was quieter than that. It looked like waking up without anxiety, cooking meals for one and liking it, sleeping through the night without wondering what she was thinking. And maybe most important, it looked like not checking my phone every hour, expecting some kind of emotional grenade to go off. I bought a new chair. A silly thing maybe, but I'd always wanted one of those deep leather armchairs, the kind that swallows you whole. Ashley thought they were too bulky, said they threw off the energy flow of the room. So I bought one, put it by the window in my office. First time I sat in it, I stayed there for 3 hours. No music, no screen, just me, a book, and the kind of silence that felt earned, not empty. People always talk about closure, like it's something you chase, a conversation, a final fight, a mutual understanding. But that's not how it works. Not really. Closure is the quiet moment when you realize you no longer need answers because the questions stopped mattering. I ran into Ashley again months later, completely by accident, a grocery store. She looked different, thinner, tired, wearing gym clothes and no makeup. She froze when she saw me, then smiled awkwardly. "Hey," she said. I nodded. "Hey." She asked how I was doing, said she was just getting back into a rhythm. I told her the truth. I'm good. And I meant it, not to impress her, not to prove anything, just because it was real. We didn't talk long. No lingering, no catching up. She never mentioned the trust, never apologized again, and I didn't need her to, because by then I wasn't angry anymore. There was no grudge to carry, no wound to press on, just distance and clarity. I finished the duplex renovation that fall, rented one unit, kept the other, turned it into an office and studio. Nothing fancy, just space that was mine. Started doing a little consulting again, low-pressure projects, helping first-time homeowners design spaces that felt honest. It was good work. Work with boundaries, work without entanglement, work that left me whole at the end of the day. Some nights, I sit out back, glass of whiskey, blanket over my lap, crickets humming in the trees. I think about what almost happened, what she almost took. Not just the money, but the belief that I could protect myself, that I could walk through fire and come out clean, because that's the part no one tells you. When someone you love betrays you, the real loss isn't the asset or the marriage, it's the mirror, the one that used to reflect trust and now shows doubt. Every decision feels heavier. Every compliment feels suspect, and it takes time to build a new mirror, a clear one. But I did. Slowly, with every morning that didn't start in panic, with every night I didn't spend justifying someone else's actions, with every quiet evening where peace wasn't a performance. I built something new, something steady, patient, rooted, something no one could steal. A friend asked me recently if I'd ever fall in love again. I said, maybe. But this time I'll keep a piece for myself. And I don't mean money. I mean time. I mean clarity. I mean sovereignty. Because love without boundaries is just possession in disguise. I'm not bitter. I'm not broken. I'm simply me again. Not a version, not a compromise, just me. And honestly, that's more than I could have hoped for.